Welcome back to Classic Car Restoration. We're taking this beautiful 1962 Thunderbird Sports Roadster out of long-term hibernation, and we're in the middle of giving it a physical to be sure that its mighty 390 V8 is ready for fire-up. We've checked the fluids so far and everything looks good, but there's more to this job than just the engine. We also have to make sure the rest of the car is ready too. We just don't know how long our Thunderbird's been sitting, so we'll err on the side of caution. Here are the basics. We'll step on the brake pedal. It's nice to see that we have a firm pedal. If it's spongy or goes to the floor, we'd have to stop everything. Fortunately, we're in good shape, although we will look under the car and make sure the wheel cylinders aren't leaking. It's also a good idea to spray the car for insects. You can set off an insect bomb or just spray the car down. We found mud wasp nests underneath the car in several places. Also check for mice and other visitors. They tend to make nests in glove boxes, vents, and inside seats. Now you can see I've got my gloves on. This is because I'm going to check the tires now for broken cords and possible problems that won't allow us to drive on them. What we do is we check the circumference of the tread, and we're feeling for any kind of lumps or uneven areas, which could indicate the fact that the tire is about to come apart. This one feels okay so far. Next, we go to the sidewall, look for dry rot or obvious cuts. Now, we're just going to drive our car around the block on these tires here. We're going to replace these tires later on, but still, we don't want bad tires on our car, even for the shortest of drives. Before we start our engine up, it's important to check the gasoline to see if it's fresh. I do this just by smelling the gas tank for a varnish-type odor. Wow, the fuel in the gas tank stinks. As is so often the case, the fuel in that tank went bad while the car sat in storage. It smells like varnish, and if we try and run that through the motor, we'll gum it up and cause big problems for ourselves. So instead, what we're going to do is give the motor its own dedicated fuel supply. To do that, we'll start by disconnecting the fuel line at the carburetor. Good thing we checked this. This has been loose. Man, this would have been spraying gas all over the place. All right, you never know what you're going to find. Okay, we'll disconnect this fuel line here, and then we'll take a suitable plug. In this case, what we'll use is a piece of Tygon hose, fuel-resistant stuff. We'll put this over the end of the fuel line so that as the engine turns over and hopefully comes to life, it won't be spraying that raw gas all over the engine compartment. We don't want a fire. Okay, with that done, we can move into our dedicated fuel system. Got to remember, safety first. We are dealing with flammable fluids here. Have a fire extinguisher ready. Very important. Okay, first up, we'll connect to the carburetor using our fitting that we've made up here. I have a piece of 5/16 steel fuel line. And what we've got here is some clear Tygon tubing. It'll allow us to see that fuel is indeed flowing into the carburetor. We attach the other end of the hose to a small gas can with clean, fresh gas. I hang the gas can from the hood of the car and feed the fresh gas directly to the carburetor. Okay, we've got a little bit of fuel leak. We'll tighten that up. Everything looks good. We've got to be sure that the hose isn't contacting anything hot or turning. Let's cross our fingers. Hit that key, Keller. It runs. Well, it runs. Well, our mighty 390 may not sound so mighty right now and has a few issues, but at least it's running, and that's an excellent start. Soon we can dig into some of the specifics on this car and get going on the restoration. But before we do that, while we're on the subject of storage, let's look into some ways to store a classic car properly. We'll do that next on Classic Car Restoration. When we come Welcome back to Classic Car Restoration. We're restoring our 1962 Thunderbird Sports Roadster to be a good daily driver. Now, what does that mean? It means we can drive it every day, any place. But a lot of classic cars may only get driven once a week, or maybe once a month, or maybe once a year. So if you're planning on storing your classic car for anything more than about 3 months, you're going to want to pickle it. That way, when you get back to it, it'll still be ready to rock and you'll be able to jump in it and drive it. To get a little bit of insight into pickling an older car, we've enlisted the help of Kevin Tate's from paintucation.com.
Hi.
Thank you for coming out, Kevin.
Well, thank you, Steve. Yeah.
Now, how long have you been messing with cars?
I kind of grew up around this stuff. I watched my dad do it as a kid, and it's just sort of stuck with me. Something I've been doing my whole life.
All right. Well, as you know, we've just taken this Thunderbird out of hibernation.
Right.
But if we were putting it into hibernation, where would we start?
There's a couple of things to consider, but what I would do first would be to add a fuel stabilizer to a full tank of gas. Now, what this will do is prevent your tank from gelling or the gasoline from deteriorating, and it also eliminates the possibility that there's condensation from the extra air being in there, which would cause a rusting problem.
Okay. What comes next?
Well, you want to have at least a 50-50 mixture of antifreeze and water in your cooling system. What this does is lubricate and corrosion protect the internal cooling passages of your engine and your radiator. Also, it keeps your car or your block from freezing if you live in a northern climate. Now, here's a tip for pouring this stuff. What you can do is pour half of it out, pour water up to the top, give it a good shake with the top closed, and then pop your cap, pop your reservoir, pour it from the side so you got water coming out or antifreeze coming out as air's going in. This keeps you from wearing this stuff.
So it doesn't go glug, glug, glug and make a mess.
Exactly.
Right. I see some motor oil. What's up there?
Well, you need to change your oil before you go into long-term storage. Oil will contain acids, metal particles, and possibly moisture too. And all that stuff will settle down into the bottom of your tank right near the pickup tube. And on your initial startup, that junk will get recirculated and just gunk up your whole motor.
Okay. How about an oil filter?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, a filter too.
I guess they're cheap enough, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I see you've got some silicone brake fluid.
Yeah. The .5 silicone brake fluid is a lot more durable and stands up over time, more so than the DOT3, which most cars commonly have. But the DOT3 will absorb moisture. It will actually wick moisture in. And over a long period of time, what you get is condensation and actual rusting inside your brake lines and your wheel cylinders.
Okay. And some spray here.
Right. A spray lubricant is a neat proactive trick. What you can do with this stuff is pop your distributor cap, give it a little misting inside there on the contact points. Now the spray lube will displace moisture and it will protect your contact points from corrosion down the road. So then again, it's just eliminating one more problem before it starts.
Okay. And what about the battery?
The battery needs to come out of the car during storage. The reason for this is that most batteries leak. Now, down around the perimeter of the battery where it sits on your battery tray, you're going to get corrosion around there, so you want to stop that before it starts as well. Also, just due to the battery being connected to the chassis, you've got an electrolytic connection, and what that's going to do is kind of accelerate or at least promote the rusting process as it happens in your car. So it's just a really good idea to get it out of the car for storage.
Okay. Now, I've heard a lot of talk about storing batteries on concrete, how it kills them. Is that true?
That's a myth. You can store a battery anywhere you want to, just as long as it's a good, safe place.
Kevin has a few more tips and techniques for proper car care storage after this break. When we come back, we'll show you how to prepare a car's interior and convertible top for long-term storage. Welcome back to Classic Car Restoration. Restoration expert Kevin Tates is here with us today to give us some pointers on how to store a car for 3 months or longer. Now, Kevin, I know we talked about the underhood area and the fuel system. What about the interior?
Well, see, there's 4 things I want to talk about. The first thing is a desiccant-style moisture absorber. Now, what you can do with this is just set it inside in the interior and just leave it alone. Now, what it'll do is take the moisture out of the air and absorb it into the crystals. Now, what that does is kind of eliminates that musty smell that you run into with an old classic car sometimes.
Yeah.
Next, we can use baking soda for basically the same thing that you use in your refrigerator. It absorbs moistures, it absorbs odors, and you can set this down in the floorboard as well. It's just extra insurance.
Can that be poured on the carpet?
Absolutely. You can pour it on the carpet and vacuum it out. It eliminates odors and just freshens things up nicely. We've got moth ice crystals, or you could get mothballs as well. Now this you don't want to sit directly on your carpet. You want to pour it into a tray and just set it on the inside of your interior on the console like we have here. That's an insect deterrent, and that'll eliminate erosion of your interior due to insect damage.
Okay. And there's a bar of soap there. What's up with that?
A spring-scented soap will actually act as a rodent deterrent. What you can do is stick this underneath your seat. Might be prudent to put it on a piece of plastic and stick it underneath your seat, and it'll keep those critters from eating your seat cushions.
What about the weather stripping?
Well, you need to dress your weather stripping using a rubber or weather stripping conditioner, not a silicone or a tire dressing, because what that will do is actually dry rot your weather strip, which is the reverse of what we're trying to do here. So you take a conditioner and you just gently wipe your weather strip. Make sure it absorbs in. And here's another tip. When you close your doors going into storage, close it to the first click. Don't let it collapse fully onto your weather strip, because what this does is compress the weather strip, and sometimes that can cause wind or water leaks when you're going down the road. And this just keeps them supple and firm. Of course, the same thing with your deck lid as well.
Now, how about the windows, up or down?
Well, in a hard top, you want them up, cracked just a little bit for circulation, but with our convertible, here's what we're going to do.
Kevin raises the convertible top so he can show how to complete getting a convertible car ready for long-term storage. Okay, Kevin, with the convertible car, what do you do with the windows?
Well, you don't want them all the way up in the total up position, because there's an important weather seal right here. You don't want it to compress, just like you don't want your door weather seal to compress. You want that rubber supple, so you dress it and leave them in an almost up position, just like this.
Same with the door?
Same with the door.
And these are power windows. Is there anything you might want to do for the switches, or?
Yes, absolutely. You can go to an electronics store and get some spray cleaner or contact cleaner for all of your power window switches, your power seat switches, ignition, everything like that. And it does much the same as we did in our distributor, in that it lubricates the contacts and stops them from corroding.
All right. Now the top is up. Do we store the car with the top up or the top down?
100% with the top up. You see these wrinkles, Steve? Those are nearly impossible to get out of there once they're in. And storing it with the top down is a guarantee to have wrinkles all over it. Even driving in the sun won't get them out most of the time.
Now we have a lot of dust and dirt on our cars. What's the best way to protect this top from damage during storage?
Right. Well, of course we'd wash it first, but you also want to, before you go into storage, and as well as coming out of storage, you also want to treat with a vinyl top conditioner the vinyl top itself. Do something like that, give it a liberal cleaning like that, and dress the top, and it just gives you some extra insurance against age. A sheet of plastic is an excellent deterrent to keep moisture damage from happening. What it does is stops condensation from coming up from the bottom side and attacking your car from the bottom.
Now, is that something you need even if you have a concrete floor or driveway?
Yeah, concrete sweats, and not everybody has a concrete floor. So if it's on a dirt floor, if your car's being stored in that environment, it's absolutely necessary. And the jack stands we've got it on, it's very important to have your suspension hanging to stop from spring fatigue happening and stop your tires from flat spotting. And if you'll notice under here as well, we've got a sheet of cardboard there. What that does is kind of acts as a Dick Tracy tool, and it lets us see if there's any leaks in the driveline.
That's true. I guess drops come straight down from their point of origin.
Exactly, and it really helps in diagnosis if you have to troubleshoot and find leaks.
It's a bad idea to cover the car with plastic sheeting, isn't it?
It really is a bad idea. And for the same reason that this moisture barrier works from the bottom, it's a bad idea from the top, because what it'll do is actually trap moisture between the plastic and your car. And that can etch some types of paint and cause dry rot in your convertible top and some of the rubbers. So really the only good answer is a high-quality car cover.
Something that allows the paint to breathe.
Exactly.
Well, Kevin, you've given us some great advice today. Thank you.
My pleasure, Steve.
We've covered some great tips on how to put a classic car into storage and how to take one out of storage. Follow these methods and your classic car will take you anywhere you want for many years to come. Next episode, we're going to start in on our 62 Thunderbird's fuel system, suspension, and driveline. And remember, if you've seen anything on today's show that you want to learn more about pertaining to classic car storage, be sure to log on to DIYnetwork.com.